those hitters struggling is probably what has been the most disheartening part of the season thus far. The Pirates were expected to struggle, so you want to see your core players put together strong seasons and take another step forward. Other than Colin Moran and Eric Gonzalez, none of their hitters appear to better or even equal to the hitters than they were last season. This is most alarming to see with Reynolds and Newman, both of whom project to be long-term answers for the Pittsburgh Pirates. The third game of the series was scheduled to take place for 6:10 p.m. Eastern tonight. Stephen Brault was scheduled to take the mound for the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Cincinnati Reds were supposed to counter with early season NL Cy Young Award candidate Trevor Bauer. Again, we will see, and I will update you on my Instagram at Bucks Dugout if we get any more information regarding what the Pirates plan on doing, or what MLB plans on doing with the moving forward. If they decide to have a doubleheader, if they decide to just postpone it and move it off to when the Pirates and Reds play next, but I will be sure to keep you updated. And I mean, the reality is that this season has really been disheartening through the first 18 games. And, you know, the Pirates were expected to struggle. And honestly, coming into this 60-game season, I thought that they had the ability and they had the team to go 30-30 and make the playoffs. Now, sitting at 4-14, and this again might sound a little bit off, but they still are only 4.5 games back of second place in the St. Louis Cardinals. So, with that being said, they still aren't that far off from being a second-place team. The Cubs, who are just setting the world on fire, are the only team above 500 in this division. And in this 2020 60-game sprint, every second-place team makes the playoffs. All the Pirates have to do is get to second place. And it is very good news that the Cardinals have only played 5 games and they sit at 2-3. The Reds really aren't playing well. The Brewers aren't playing well. So although the Pirates are off to the worst start in baseball and are the only MLB team not to win back-to-back games, they still sit in a position in which if they could get hot, if the offense could get going just a little bit, then this team could put something together still and potentially be a playoff team. Now, it would be a monumental task for this team to finish 30-30, like I said. And when we were talking about a full season, I said 74 wins in last place. That's where this Pirates team is in a full season. And again, what's frustrating to me is the situations that we are seeing with Kevin Newman and Brian Reynolds. And we did last week an episode where we went over what the 2023 Pirates starting lineup is going to be. And that's the year that I see them sort of putting it all together and can actually be playoff and World Series contenders. And the only holdover, per se, from the current starting lineup is Brian Reynolds, and I have him being out there and left. And so, obviously, I see him as a long-term answer out there, and the fact that he's struggling the way he is concerning. The one, I guess, silver lining when you look at Brian Reynolds is he is still putting together quality at-bats. In fact, the most on the team, even though we have seen Colin Moran and Eric Gonzalez really take steps forward this season, they're still not putting together as many quality at-bats as Brian Reynolds is. And both Colin Moran and Eric Gonzalez are very encouraging signs. And, I mean, this may sound surprising, but when you look at Eric Gonzalez, he's 6'2", 210, as an Alex Rodriguez type build physically. Now, is he going to be an Alex Rodriguez type player? That's unlikely. But the reality is he's hitting the ball harder than anybody in baseball. His glove is outstanding. And if Kevin Newman can't figure it out, you almost have to think that you might start to look at Eric Gonzalez as being the shortstop of the future and not Kevin Newman. And the other reality is that the Pirates have a bevy of shortstop prospects waiting behind behind Newman and Gonzalez, whether it's Liver Peguero, who I think will be the ultimate guy, O'Neal Cruz, who I believe will move off to right. You have Nick Gonzalez, who I think will move off to second. I mean, there's a lot of talent that the Pirates have at the shortstop position. But what we've seen from Eric Gonzalez is leading me to believe that he might be the guy at shortstop moving forward, and Neil Huntington's banging the table his scouts doing that, it might prove to be accurate. The Pittsburgh Pirates have had two breakout infielders that no one was necessarily expecting. What are their futures in the organization? If someone would have guessed who the Pittsburgh Pirates breakout infielder would have been this season, answers would have likely been a lot of Cole Tucker or Ke'Bryan Hayes. Both were favorites to not only be the breakout, but establish themselves as the present and future of the left side of the infield. Tucker has played more outfield than infield, and Hayes has yet to crack the roster. Unlike in the past, the Pittsburgh Pirates have actually been fortunate and have had other players step up. This is part of the reason the team has not been able to see Tucker give him time in the infield. Phillip Evans and Eric Gonzalez have enjoyed breakout seasons that no one would have predicted. Evans was picked up as a non-roster invite back in December. He spent time in the Cubs system last year and previously was with the Mets. He made his big league debut in 2017 and received a look in 2018, but never got a real chance. Last year, he did not get a chance with the Cubs. The Bucks brought him in just as interesting depth, but instead, they found a player who forced his way onto the diamond. Unfortunately, Evans' season was cut short after a scary collision with Gregory Polanco. Evans will finish the year with a .359 batting average across 11 games. The good news is that Evans will likely be back on the team next year. He definitely proved he earned another look next season. Evans is not arbitration eligible until 2023, so he still has plenty of years of relatively cheap control. There is no reason to think that the Bucks would move on from him after what he did this year and with his remaining control. The same can be said for Eric Gonzalez. Gonzalez is a player that Pittsburgh Pirates fans have longed to be DFA'd. It's a good thing that the team did not, as he has made up a good portion of their offense. On the year, he is batting .350 with a .900 OPS. On top of that, he already has as many extra base hits this year as he did in all of 2019. Did the Pittsburgh Pirates finally catch a break? It is hard to completely say, as this has only come across 12 games. Although he did hit .276 in September of last year as well. The previous regime said how Gonzalez had a lot of good peripherals, and the new regime looks like they have figured out how to tap into those. On top of his offense, Gonzalez has always been known as a plus defender. With his glove and what he has shown with the bat, Gonzalez will likely be sticking around. He is controlled through 2022, so the Bucks still have plenty of time to figure out what they have in him. Both Gonzalez and Evans have really added intriguing depth to the middle infield, and it will be interesting to see how the Pittsburgh Pirates operate with so much middle infield depth going forward. And both of these guys are really starting to establish themselves. We'll start off with Eric Gonzalez, and again, for the longest time, fans have wanted him designated for assignment, not understanding why the Pirates kept giving him opportunities. And they brought him back again this season after a very solid September, and he has proven to be really making up a large part of their offense and being one of the better hitters in all of baseball. And who would have thought that on August 15th, 2020, we would be able to say that Eric Gonzalez has the highest hard hit rate in the big leagues this season. Eric Gonzalez owns that. And again, he did it .276 last year. He's hitting .350 with a .900 OPS. Already has as many extra base hits this year as he did in all of last season. And this is through 12 games. He hasn't even played in all 18 games that the Pirates have featured in. But you look at him, and he's been starting at third base. And we talked about this a little bit in the last segment. Is if Kevin Newman continues to struggle, could we see Eric Gonzalez go back to being the starting shortstop in the future? Now, the biggest question with him is the fact that he is only controlled through 2022. It does give them time to figure out what they have in him, but if he continues to play like the way he has, I mean, come 2023, you could be looking at a decent payday. Now, I know I'm getting getting way too ahead of myself with considering that. And, this is all over a relatively small sample size. But I really like what I've been seeing from Eric Gonzalez, and it's hard not to like. And again, fans obviously were upset with the whole trade when they traded Jordan Luplow and Max Moroff to the Indians in return for Eric Gonzalez, Tanaj Thomas, and Dante Mendoza. And don't forget about Tanaj Thomas either, pitching prospect in the system. But Eric Gonzalez is starting to prove why they made that trade, why the scouts were so high in Gonzalez. And really, the reality is that the old regime loved him, Hurdle, Huntington, and crew, and the new regime in Sherrington and Shelton are finally starting to tap into the potential, the peripherals, into what the old regime saw in him. And they're finally being able to see that come to fruition on the field. And it's nice to see that the Pirates, it seems like they have finally caught a break. And we haven't got many of those over the course of the past 2 seasons. It has been trying times for Pirates fans since 2018. And I know it's only been 2019 and a little bit into this year, but it's definitely not been easy to be a Pirates fan, and it's nice to see that the Pirates look to have caught a break and might have their new shortstop of the future in Eric Gonzalez, or at least a player that's going to be sticking around for hopefully quite some time. And the other guy in this equation is Phillip Evans, and it's really a shame that the collision in foul territory with Gregory Polanco a week ago today, a concussion, broke his jaw. At least that's all it was, and it was no serious neck damage, because it was scary seeing Phillip Evans being stabilized the way he was, put onto the stretcher and carted off the field. But he is in good spirits. He is home. Again, the concussion and the broken jaw out for the season. But, there's no reason why the Pirates wouldn't give him another look next year. The Pirates aren't going to be they're not going to be a competitive or a competing team in 2021. And so, really, I still think they might have a chance in 2020, but we're talking about 2021 and a full season. They're not going to have, let's just say, a high likelihood of competing. They're not going to be a competing team next season. So why not run out Phillip Evans every day? See what you have in him, because honestly, we could be looking at a new future of the left side of the infield, and Eric Gonzalez and Phillip Evans at short and third respectively. And whoever thought we'd be seeing that? But 2020 has been a strange year, to say the least. And obviously both guys, and Eric Gonzalez is going to have to prove himself for the rest of the season and into next season. And Phillip Evans is going to have to prove himself again in 2021. But from the early returns and what we saw, I mean, rather than looking at Cole Tucker and Ke'Bryan Hayes, we're looking at Eric Gonzalez and Phillip Evans. And I know the name and all the stigma that might become attached to that, but they're both solid players. And when you start looking at what the roster could look like if they trade Adam Frazier at the deadline, we'll see what they decide to do with Josh Bell, but the infield could look like Gonzalez, Evans. Maybe they could swing Newman over to second, maybe keep Cole Tucker in the outfield, see what they do with Bell, see what they do with Osuna. I mean, there's a lot of directions that the Pirates could go, and it's going to lead to some intriguing discussion and intriguing conversation as we near the trade deadline, just 16 days away. We only have 2 episodes before that deadline. And with the Pirates being in the situation they are, they really only have about a week, I believe, to turn this thing around before Ben Cherington. And we talked about last week, we talked about trading Derek Hall and how that needs to be a priority. We talked about in the past Keone Kela, Adam Frazier, Gerard Dyson, guys that could be moved to the deadline. Kela and Holland, I would say, probably have more of a priority given the fact that they're free agents. Guys like Frazier, and along with Dyson, since he's going to be a free agent. But Frazier, he can wait until the offseason. But it's going to be interesting to see what Ben Cherington does and his decision-making and the process that he goes through with Phillip Evans, with Eric Gonzalez, with, again, guys like Cole Tucker and Ke'Bryan Hayes, and just the depth that they have in the middle infield. And you throw Kevin Newman and Adam Frazier, Cole Tucker. We already talked about Tucker, but then the guys coming up through the system, Liver Peguero, Ji-Hwan Bae, Nick Gonzalez, Steven Alamaze, O'Neal Cruz. There's a lot of directions that this Pirates